Hello, my name is Every Bubble, but I sometimes go by the name of Simon, since that's my name. Anyway, this is a thoughts video, and more importantly, this is a thoughts video on Clans of Caledonia. This is my Kickstarter copy, which I've gotten to play now 2 times, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but let me tell you, I'm thoroughly enjoying this game. Now, this again is not a review. If you want someone to go and talk to you and be like, well, this is clearly more of a 7 out of 10 game we recommend, but you can go somewhere else. This is basically if you know about Clans of Caledonia and just want to hear my thoughts on it and if I think it's good or not. Long of it, short of it is, I do think this is a really good game. I think this is Terra Mystica 1.5, which means if you like Terra Mystica, chances are you're going to like this game. It has a lot of similar mechanics to it. Essentially, over the course of 5 or 6 rounds, you're going to be putting buildings out, using those buildings to generate you resources, and then using those resources to fulfill contracts. Essentially, it's kind of Terra Mystica in a lot of the ways, you're placing buildings down, but then it's a lot like Marco Polo, which is all about fulfilling various contracts using goods, and also it has clan powers, which kind of act as those very asymmetric faction leaders, or those characters that used to do really crazy stuff in Marco Polo. These characters are less crazy, but they're still very, very important, because you're each going to choose one, and that kind of gives you a strategy to follow for the game. You don't have to follow it, but generally you're going to do better if you do keep to the strategy the kind of clan tells you to. So in the screenshot you can see that they have Clan Cunningham. Whenever they produce milk, they can then sell it, and they get $8, which is a lot more than what you would normally get for basically selling milk. The game is very simple. On your turn, you're going to be doing a variety of actions, which could be placing buildings down, which are either going to be next to buildings that you have, or they're going to be across rivers. If you have the river technology, it's going to be upgrading your technologies. It's going to be buying or selling goods on the marketplace, or it's going to be fulfilling contracts or getting contracts. Contracts are essentially the main way of getting victory points at the end game. For example, this one's going to cost me a will and 4 whiskies to produce. And then you can see it's going to get me some sugarcane, some money, and some hops. The sugarcane is what's going to give you points at the end of the game. You basically get points based on how rare the good is. And hops is that's just 3 points right there. Each round, you're going to be trying to get these contracts, and what's cool is at the beginning of the game, in round 1, you get paid 5 money to take a contract. But then as you get to round 6, you have to pay 15 money to take a contract. By that stage, of course, your engine should be up and running so that you can just pump out contracts one by one. I had one game where the guy managed to get 8 contracts done by the end of round 6, which is quite a statement. I think his score was somewhere in the 200s, which is crazy. And I think we're all like 100 maybe, or 150 at best. But contracts are the main way to score in this game. Obviously, there are other scoring mechanics. So how much money you have is going to give you some points. How many contracts you fulfilled. And then also your settlements. Your settlements are this weird combination of buildings that are next to each other but are separated by a river or a lake. So they're not buildings that are adjacent to each other over land. It's a bit complicated, but if you're familiar with Terra Mystica's settlement scoring rules, it's pretty much the same thing with a few more caveats tied in. That sounds complicated, but the game is not. A lot of Terra Mystica's kind of extraneous rules don't apply in the situation. For example, take money, which I will say that now I do have the collector's Kickstarter set, which does come with metal coins. In this game, all your actions are based on money. In Terra Mystica, you had things like the priest, you had things like money, you had workers, and then you also had power. So you kind of had 4 resources that you're essentially balancing and kind of like changing between each other as the game goes. So you kind of really didn't know what your actions really costed you until you got maybe towards the end. So you could be like, okay, well, if I use the priest, it's going to actually be a worker. In this game, what's nice is everything gets told to you. So everything is money. How much is going to be to put a building down? That's money. How much is going to be to buy a good? It's going to be money. How much do I get for fulfilling a contract? It's going to be money, or it might not be money. But everything is money. So you can instantly tell what an action is going to cost you, and this allows for much more faster gameplay. The game takes only 6 rounds to play in, and chances are you can get it done in close to 2 hours, which is great. Terra Mystica tends to feel a lot more longer and tends to feel a bit more dragged out. This is a nice time framework for how long the game plays. Again, you have really cool clan abilities which kind of change the game up as you play. So this guy just wants more whiskey, or this guy is really cool. He can just take another contract, so you can always have 2 contracts at a time as opposed to 1, and that's really useful. It doesn't seem like a powerful ability, but then you have, for example, say this one, who can basically go next to rivers for a lot more cheaper than it would normally cost them. Or this one here, who gives you 3 workers at the start, but he has to start on the outer edges. But then he has a massive increase to his technology in terms of the rivers. Again, just really, really powerful abilities at the start of the game. And of course, you also get a variance in what resources you have at the start and how much money you have. And you might think you have a lot of money to start off with. You might get $60 to start off with. But this is nothing. Like, chances are all that's going to be gone within the next 4 actions you do, because a building will generally cost you like $13, and that might seem like a lot, but I think it's great that it costs so much because you have a handful of coins, and as you do a building action, you're just going to be chucking them away. Or likewise, during the end of the round, you get production. Production is where your buildings will generate you resources, but also your miners and your lumberjacks are going to give you gold as well. So you might end the round off and you might then generate 36 gold pieces, and it feels great just taking a handful of coins. You feel rich, you feel like you're an economic baron in this game. What's nice is the game also has essentially a market system where prices are going to fluctuate depending on what actions players do. So if players constantly sell, say, their whiskey to the market, that whiskey is going to become a lot more cheaper to basically buy if someone else wants to buy it, which means you might end up in a situation where, okay, well, I'm going to trade in my full whiskey, and that's going to get me a good 24 points or 24 gold pieces, and then your friend comes along and is like, oh, whiskey is very cheap now, I'm going to buy 2 and then fulfill this contract. You care about what other people are doing. You care, this is simply about what contracts you fulfill, because there's 3 types of luxury goods, which are sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton. And essentially, based on how much of it is in Scotland at the end of the game, which depends on the contracts, you're going to score points. So you're thinking, well, let me try find really rare goods. Like if cotton is too popular, I might want to try find more tobacco contracts. But then I have to be able to fulfill those contracts, and these things could vary greatly. This one's going to ask me for some wool, and then it's going to give me 2 cotton. It will allow me to basically build on a land tile for free. I still have to pay the building costs, but I get that tile for free, and it gets me 1 point. Oh, cheese! Cheese is going to give me some sugar cane. It's going to give me 8 gold, and it's also going to give me 5 hops. The contracts are not crazy, but they're so varied in how they come out. Over the course of the game, you'll see maybe half of the contracts that are actually in the game entirely, and you're going to have to make choices. Do you take that action now that allow you to cut off an opponent's settlement, or do you try and grab that contract, which will stop your opponent from getting that contract? You're constantly kind of caring about what your friends are doing. Terra Mystica always had this thing where you're kind of working more towards the end game. You didn't really care about what your opponents were doing until you got to round 5 and 6. Likewise, every action you take was kind of more planning towards the end game rather than what's going on right here and right now. So you might send a priest to go worship in one of the temple tracks, and you knew that was just to get you points at the end of the game. Whereas in this, when you take those contracts is important, where you place your buildings down is important, because even on the board itself, you have these various port tiles at the outer edges of the board, and that could be get 10 money, or change a price of a good by 3 steps, or it could just be you get to put 2 buildings down for free. These things are crazy good, but you have to then get to them, and you're trying to build out your settlements as well. So planning out your actions is important. And if you ever build next to someone, similar to Terra Mystica where you get power, in this you can just get stuff for cheaper. So if you build next to a person's cow all of a sudden you can buy milk for a lot more cheaper than what it normally would cost you. So you kind of want to use that to your advantage to get goods quickly, to kind of get goods that you might not be able to produce because you're trying to focus on, say, whiskey when your friend was producing wool, and now all of a sudden one of the contracts needs wool to be available, but you don't have any, so you're going to have to build a building next to him. But what building do you build? It's great. There's so many choices in the game. I say it's a Terra Mystica 1.5 mainly because they've taken kind of all the mechanics that didn't really work in Terra Mystica or felt like they were bolted on and got rid of them. And then they brought in a whole bunch of mechanics that just work so well. The theme is lovely. The artwork is great. The board looks fantastic. I will say, however, the components are a bit small for me. I kind of am used to things like Caledonia. Caledonia, you have the wheat pieces and they're fairly nice and big and chunky. The wheat pieces are much more smaller, which is this kind of a faff. I like the colors. I can see why they did them. It's for colorblind reasons. But again, the overall production is really nice. I just wish the game was bigger. It's basically, if you know the size of the Terra Mystica box, this is the same size, but it's just half the depth in terms of the amounts of components you get. But that's honestly fine. This is a really nice 2-player game. It plays well with 2 players. As my friend has talked about, it plays well with 3 and 4. It doesn't take too long. Every action you feel like is rewarded. And hopefully, it's not too expensive when it does come to retail. I think if you're looking for a Terra Mystica game and you're not quite certain you should pick up Gaia Project, but you like Terra Mystica, then I 100% recommend Clans of Caledonia. It just works. The designer has gone through a lot of effort to make sure this game plays like Terra Mystica, but has enough differences that it feels like its own personal thing. And I can tell you now, if I see some expansions that this gives me more clan options, or maybe an expansion that kind of changes the map up even more, I will 100% be getting that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. I wonder if you have your Kickstarter copy or if you're waiting for this to get to retail. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. If you're more of an American trashy person, maybe you don't like the theme of the game. Maybe that's one thing you want to talk about as well. If you did like this video, of course, remember to like the video and subscribe. And I'll try and get some more videos out within the coming weeks. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.